Hey dudes, before we get into the video today, I just want to say a couple things real quickly because I forgot to mention them in the video. First off, this is going to be a very long video. It might even be 2 videos. So either way, if you're interested in kind of skipping to certain parts of the content so you don't have to go through the entirety of it all, please check the description down below as I will timestamp all my specific parts to this video. And the second thing I wanted to bring up real quick is that along with the timestamps, every single company that I highlight in this video will also have a link in the description as well. So if you're interested in learning any more about them or maybe picking up some of their designs, I highly recommend it. And once again, be sure to check the description down below. But with that all said, now let's finally move on to the video. Hey dudes, and welcome back to The Bance. As always, I am your host, The Bance, and as you can see, we are back up here, which means that it is time once again for another designer toy video. So for those of you who've been watching my more recent videos over the last couple weeks, you might have noticed some new things pop up here and there in the background. You know, a couple things over here and a couple things directly behind me, and probably standing out more than anything else was probably that pink lanyard there. And I'm sure you're all wondering where all of this came from. Well, if you didn't get a chance to see my last toy video, let me spoil it for you now. Yes, I finally got a chance to make it out to DesignerCon this year. And even though I really do want to just dive in head first into my whole experience at the convention, before that, for those of you out there who didn't get a chance to come out to DesignerCon this year, I've put together a little bit of a montage to kind of give you a feel of what it's like. So without further ado, enjoy. Alright, well, I hope you guys all enjoyed that. It was my first time ever filming something like that, so I apologize if it's a little bit sketchy. I definitely learned a lot from doing this video, and we'll definitely be doing much better versions of this in the future. And just so you know, this was just a very little taste of the entire montage, so if you are interested in seeing that as well, of course, I will link that in the description down below. And now with all of that out of the way, let's finally get into my thoughts about the show. So first things first, what did I think about the whole convention? Honestly, I thought it was pretty fantastic. I was really happy with the turnout, and not only designers themselves, but people excited about being there too. I knew it was going to be probably a little bit bigger than I expected, but I never expected there to be as many people as there were, especially on Saturday, which is by far the biggest day. I also thought it was pretty cool at just some of the big names they were able to bring in, such as the signing booth that Steve Harrington was doing for his new Babe collaboration, and Luke Chu, who was also signing his new Possessed color variants. Eric Nakamura also had his own giant robot panel, which unfortunately I didn't get a chance to see. Sorry, Eric. And probably the most surprising of all to at least me was that Bigfoot was there signing all of his figures, which is insane in my opinion, because I mean, for those of you who have followed graffiti or toys for any amount of time now, you'll kind of know how popular he used to be, and to kind of just see him nonchalantly there just signing his figures in a booth was pretty cool as well, I have to say. And actually, while we're on the topic of surprises, there were a couple other large surprises, at least to me, about DesignerCon that I wanted to share with all of you as well. And I know some of these might just make you go, yeah, but I personally didn't know about them myself, so forgive me. Now, the first thing that surprised me was just the amount of other designers that were there, and by others I mean non-toy designers. Yes, there were a couple of plush and plushy designers and manufacturers there, but when it comes down to it, I kind of loop them into the designer toy scene, so that wasn't that weird to me. But as for everybody else there, such as the artists and the jewelers and the pin sellers and creators and designers and sticker and decal designers and just other craftsmen in general, that's more what surprised me. But when it comes down to it, I guess that does make sense because it is called DesignerCon, not Designer Toy Con. Then moving on to the second thing that surprised me was just the amount of resellers there were there. And yeah, I kind of get why this shouldn't have surprised me, but it still did. People selling raw English and people selling Coarse, which honestly I was surprised there was that much Coarse to resell, but hey, what do I know? People reselling Fool's Paradise, and holy fucking shit, were there just so many people reselling CODs. It was absolutely insane. And I know I really shouldn't have to get into this, and I really don't want to rant about it too much, but please do everything you can in your power to not support resellers. And I'm not talking about the people that have enjoyed pieces in their collection and are just either trying to size down or need some extra money here and there. I'm talking more about the people that make a business off reselling. Just please don't support them. It is such a terrible part of not only this industry, but a lot of different creative industries as a whole, and it really just sucked to see how rampant it was at the show. And last but not least, and kind of in line with my second point, was I was super surprised just to see how many customs there were. And the reason why I'm putting customs in quotes is because even though yes, there were some people out there doing some really fantastic custom pieces, custom paint jobs that actually had a decent amount of creativity behind them, there was many times more people that just were doing the same exact shit over and over again. I mean, let's be real here. I could probably go my whole life without seeing another dissected figure, cause or otherwise again, and probably be perfectly fine. But for some reason, people keep doing it. And even if that alone just might be a major example, it's really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all of this stuff. Like the amount of people that were taking other figures and just breaking off parts of them and either using them in their own creations or even using them as a base and then just adding, you know, a single piece to them and then a coat of paint and then considering them their own was just insane. And the rather sad thing about it is that unless you really had an eye for it, you probably wouldn't be able to know the difference. I mean, just take me for example. Sure, I know what I would consider a decent amount about toys, even if most of my info kind of comes from years gone by. I've still dabbled in it here and there. But even then, when I met up with one of my good friends who knows a ton more about designer toys than I do at the show, he was just pointing out this shit left and right. And really, if he hadn't been there to show it to me, it would have just flown right over my head. And I mean, if that can happen to me, I mean, it could pretty much happen to anybody, I think. Sorry, that did come off a tad egotistical, and I definitely didn't mean it like that. I was just trying to get my point across. My point being that really anybody could end up at a show like this and find a really cool design and end up purchasing it from somebody that they believe made this piece 100% from beginning to end, when in fact they really only did maybe 10% of the work overall, which is really kinda sad. So just a light word of warning to all of you out there. If you happen to be going to a show like this anytime in the future and you're looking for something specific, or even happen to see something there that you might enjoy, definitely do as much research on it as you can before purchasing it. Or if you're lucky enough to have somebody with a vast amount of knowledge like I personally did, definitely go to them for advice as well. And I do have to reiterate that I'm not saying that we shouldn't buy customs at all. I'm definitely not saying that. As I said previously, there were some very cool customs there. Just make sure you really know exactly what it is you're buying, because some of those just kind of bottom of the barrel sellers are really just ruining it for everybody else. So yeah, really didn't want to end this section on such a dark note, so I apologize. But now let's move on to something a little bit lighter, shall we? Let's take a look at some of the major players who were at the show and kind of just quickly cover some of their booths. So first off, we have 1000 Toys, who I didn't even know was going to be at this show, so when I ran into their booth by accident, I was stunned, to say the least. They had probably by far one of the bigger booths at the show, and it was just chocked full of stuff. They were showing off a bunch of different prototypes. They had a bunch, and I mean a bunch of different toys for sale, which we will get into a little bit later. And by far the coolest thing they had at their booth was their Toys to Art showcase, highlighting pretty much a bunch of different designers and artists from around the world who had taken their synths and customized them, painted them, and even manufactured kind of clothing and accessories for them and put them on display. And really, I put it in my montage, about half of them. Go check those out specifically. Some really phenomenal custom work there. 3A also had a nice sized booth as well, and it was kind of unfortunate that Ashley wasn't able to make his way out there, but even so, it was nice to see them nonetheless, though they seem to have a significant amount of emphasis on their Astrolads, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, it just isn't personally my thing. And actually right next to 3A was the Coarse Toys booth, and they had a great showing as well. Not only were they displaying some of their classics, but they had a ton of exclusives for DesignerCon this year, and I thought they were really great. Personally, once again, they just weren't my style, so I didn't pick any up. But if you were a Coarse fan there, then there was definitely a ton of cool stuff to not only look at, but purchase as well. And of course, how could I not talk about by far the biggest and probably most renowned toy booth that was there this year, and that is of course the Medicom booth. Holy shit, was this booth amazing. Now for those of you who don't know, Medicom actually does their own expo every year in Tokyo, obviously titled the Medicom Expo, where they really kind of show off a mix of everything. Some of their more renowned stuff, a ton of new stuff that's currently out, and a lot of stuff that's coming out very soon as well. And even though this booth wasn't the entirety of what they normally do at their Medicom Expos, even to just see the tiniest sliver of that was incredible, just incredible. Obviously the majority of the exhibit was bare bricks for the most part, and some Kubricks as well, and a lot of their other designer toys, such as stuff they've done for Undercover or other artists such as Andy Warhol and Andre from Paris, oh, and of course Banksy. But they did have a nice selection of other things as well, such as some Disney memorabilia and a lot of their own customs, which were just phenomenal, if not fucking expensive. My only real drawback to that entire thing was just that not everything there was for sale, because I mean, just kind of a personal rant real quick here, to see the Ryan McGinnis 400% bear brick there, knowing full well that I couldn't purchase it, it fucking sucked. But even my small annoyance aside, really just super cool showing from Medicom, and if they ever do anything similar to this again, definitely, if you are a toy fan at all, try and get out to see it, because it's really just a fantastic thing. Honestly, just kind of lost for words on how cool it was. Oh yeah, Funko also had a booth. Alright, but now with my kind of breakdown of the show complete, let's move on into some of my specific toy highlights. And actually there were a handful of things I did want to highlight that actually weren't toys, so let's actually do them first. First up, we have the FireChilde Glass Studio, which, as the name implies, is a group of craftsmen who work in glasswork. And specifically what I want to be highlighting is their marbles, because these were just incredible. Ranging from about the size of a quarter to about the size of your fist, just the amount of design and detail and different materials that compose these pieces was just amazing to see. And I am somewhat of a sucker myself for marbles, so if you enjoy glasswork like this, I highly recommend checking them out. Then as far as artists went, I really wanted to highlight Madhouse Arts. I just love the kind of graffiti inspired style here, mixed with the very strong pop vibes and elements in the work, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, definitely recommend checking this out as well. And I do want to say to my defense that the only reason why I'm only highlighting this one artist, even though there was a ton of art there that I absolutely loved, the reason being is because unfortunately I just don't remember any names, and Madhouse was the only one that actually had business cards. I mean, what the fuck, artists? If you want people... Nah, I'm not gonna get into it. And also shoutouts to that one artist who I really enjoyed and wanted to put here, but not only would he not let me take photos of his art, but he wouldn't even let me film it. So congratulations, you're not even in the montage, you dumb motherfucker. Alright, rant over, I promise. But really, to all the artists out there, please have something next time. A business card, a sticker, something, even something that I can buy that's tiny, so I can just rep your stuff in the future, because there was so much good shit there that I really wanted to highlight, and unfortunately I just have no paper trail, so there's nothing I can do. And the final thing I wanted to highlight that wasn't a designer toy, you might have already seen in a couple of my videos because I just had to pick one up, and that is of course one of the Punching Pandas by Nolen Lee. And I mean, how cool is this thing? This here I believe is the 7-inch version. They also came in a 13-inch version as well, and I mean, just design wise, it's fucking fantastic. And not only has he done this, but he's done illustrations, he's done children's books, I think he did postcards as well. My only downside is that he hasn't done any figures of the Punching Pandas yet, although I talked to Nolen at the show and he'd already been kind of toying around with the idea of using a vinyl or resin, and said that he had been trying to work on it and we might be seeing some as early as next year, so fingers crossed on that. But all in all, just really cool plush, definitely worth it and definitely worth checking out as well.